Hi everyone. If you've been intimidated by figures, I'm going to show you a simple way to get started. All you need is some old fashion magazines or catalogs with clothing in them, and you'll be able to do this simple and easy technique. If we haven't met before, I'm Pat from Scrivener Art and Design on Vancouver Island in Canada. If you're new to my channel, I hope you enjoy my videos, and if you've been following me for a while, thank you so much. I have set up a Buy Me a Coffee account if you would like to help me on my journey, not necessarily for coffee, but to help buy some art supplies to support this channel. I'll leave the link in the description below. Let's get started with the video. So I've got a pile of magazine images here, just from some old-fashioned magazines, and you can also use catalogs, whatever works. And then you're going to need some tracing paper. We want the images to be fairly vertical so they fit on this 4.5 by 12 shape, and you're going to start with a 9 by 12 page, or cut your paper down if you have a bigger pamphlet. So I looked at this, it says 49 cents. I'm not sure where I got this, but I don't think I've had it long enough to be 49 cents. In any event, tracing paper is your friend for this exercise. So 2 pieces and some tape. Masking tape is fine. And your sketchbook. And this can have something on it already. In fact, it's probably best if it does. So I have something where I made a mess and put some Asemic writing. And I'm just going to find a page that appeals to me today to do this on. So I'm just going to quickly look through these and stop when I get to something I like. So there's my gal for today. Don't dwell over this. It's just a quick exercise. I'm going to put my 4.5 by 12 inch tissue paper over top of the figure, and if she doesn't fit, that's just fine. I'm going to sketch around the figure. I'm just using a pencil. So this is going to build some muscle memory into your hand. So we're really looking to identify the shapes. This will really help you over the long run, and even in doing this painting, just to get an idea of what those shapes are. Next, we're going to put the tracing paper over the image, and we want to trace around the figure, the silhouette. So line it up so it's not dead center. It makes a more interesting composition. And we want to just use a little bit of tape to hold that down while we're sketching around it. The blue tack tape is nice because it comes off easily. It won't rip your paper. You just want to take a pencil and trace around that silhouette. You don't have to lift your pencil. Just keep going in one line so that we have a nice outline. I'm sorry that I didn't realize I wasn't all in the camera here. And now we're going to take that tracing paper off. Now I'm going to look for a page that I feel would work with the image and that I would enjoy working on with this particular figure. So I'm not looking for the color that was in her dress, I'm just looking for something. And you can actually see through this tracing paper to get an idea. So I'm not doing it on a 4x12 canvas, but you could, it will fit perfectly, or you can just work in your sketchbook. So I'm looking at where her face is and which direction, and I want it to be facing so it's not going out of the picture. So I've decided to put it on the left hand side of this page. I'm going to use a pair of scissors and just fold this over to get started, and then cut out the silhouette, but also keep the negative space as well. So now I'm going to place the figure on my paper here and decide where I want it to go. So I have quite a bit of space at the top, and I've got to decide how far up I want her, but also looking at what I like. So I want to get some of that energy of that big sloppy writing in the bottom of her dress. So just gob up a little piece of tape or use some stickum and put her down on your page so that you can now go around the form and get her sketched onto your background. So I realize you can't see that and I can't see that. So I'm going to try with a black pen here. I think that'll show up better. So just sketch around the silhouette. Again, we're not looking for perfection here. We're just looking to get the job done and come up with a form. Now, if you're good at sketching and you understand the proportions of the figure to some degree, this exercise isn't for you. But if you're new to figure drawing, this exercise is a fantastic way to get started. That's safe, and you're going to achieve pretty good results right out of the gate. So I encourage you to try that. So I have lots of room on this other side of my page for another person. And just for the sake of the video, I think I'll just use this same outline, but in reverse. So trying to get this one to look the other way and also be lower down. So there's some difference in height there. And again, I'm just going to sketch around the edge. So this will just develop our forms and give us a bit of a roadmap where to go. next thing we'll be doing is some reductive painting, and then you'll really start to see these forms pop out. Other things you could do here is you could use the same technique and take collage paper and cut your collage paper out and glue it down and work that way. But I'm going to show you how to paint it. So now the next step is to go around the figure with some blocking out paint. So you can use pure titanium white, you could use gesso, you could use craft paint if it's in your sketchbook. You don't have to use expensive paint. So today I'm just using a paint pot from the paint store. So this is just latex paint. And I'm going to let some of this background go around the forms of my figure. So you'll start to see the shapes appear here. And I know it's always feels a bit scary to do this and get rid of some of the nice parts of the background that you liked and letting go, but it's part of the process, and that's why you try and find places you like, things you like. You could also use transparent paint and block it out, and that way you would keep the background, but it wouldn't, it would keep getting darker. So it really depends how dark you want to go. I'm just scribbling back into this wet paint with a knitting needle just to make some marks and try and show a little bit of that color. Now, these without heads could look like that they are walking away, but their feet don't. So I'm going to have to put them walking forward or make a decision to change their feet. So just carving into the leg area, and I think at the bottom I'm going to use a dark color to ground it more, rather than painting it all out in this light tone. So I'm going to use some Demco paint, fluid paint, and it is Athroquinone blue. So it's a dark, deep, rich blue. And it's a product made in Canada. It's less expensive than some of the fluid paints, but the coverage is fairly good. I'm just using a little styrofoam tray right now, just because I'm not going to mix this. So I'll just go ahead and paint it directly on. And it is fairly transparent, but it's dark. So I'm not sure how much is going to show through, and I have some of the paint from the background on my brush, so it's definitely not totally transparent. Change brushes and start applying this and see how it looks. So I don't want the background to line up with the hemline, so I just push that up a bit so that it doesn't form a straight line across. So I'm looking at her hat now, and where the dark is under the brim, just going to draw that out a little bit more here. Again, you could use collage if you wanted to make a hat. Or you could decide not to put the hat on at all. Like at this point, we're not wanting to really copy the picture too much. You can look at it for shadows and highlights if you want to add some of that, but it's really using that for a jumping off point and getting the feel of the figure and the proportions so that you can get a start on figure work without worrying about your figures not looking proper. So I'm putting a little bit of dark in there under where the hair would be. I'm going to just indicate the face here with a pen, and just so I have some direction going forward. And I realize you probably can't see that. I'm going to try with some chalk here, so it'll be a little bit clearer, I think. Just put a little indication of the face in. So on this one, I want to make her a bit different looking, so I'm not going to put a hat on her. And I don't think I'll put two complete arms. I'm going to put this hand in. So just drawing in a point of reference on the boots here. And remember that the one leg is over top of the other. So the gal behind, you want to make sure her boot is behind. It sounds so logical, but it's easy to make mistakes. So maybe put in a part of the arm on that side. I'm going to use some craft paint for the light colors here. So this is just a pale yellow. I'm going to use some pink. So when you're working in your sketchbook, this is just fine. But what I know about craft paint is that the pigment load and the opacity is weak. And often the colors are very dull. But I'm going to try and mix something out of the pink and the yellow that would resemble a skin tone that would work with my pink in the painting. So this kind of lets me block it in, but honestly, it has poor coverage. I think opting for student grade paint is a better option. And I had these left over and just thought I might try and use some up, but they're a long way from the normal paints I use. So I've got the titanium white out after all, and I'm going to mix some into this craft paint just to try and give it more opacity. So just coming back in on these arms and faces, a little bit of leg that's showing. Switching up to a little smaller brush here. So the coverage still isn't great, but it's only my sketchbook, so I'm not overly worried, and I can paint over it again. Everything can be corrected. Don't get too hung up on making things perfect the first go around. I'm just going to put some yellow out and add a little bit more zip in places. So this is the fluid acrylic. I'm going to add some in her hair. Now this may not stay yellow, but just as the under color. I want to put it somewhere else. So put a little bit on the dress over here. Maybe a little bit down here. So your eye just moves around. Glaze over the pink with this yellow. It's going to push it a little bit more towards an orange. I'm going to add some more dark down to the bottom area here, taking it up and evening my line out. Now I don't want it to line up with the hemline, so I put it a little bit above, but you could also put it below the hemline. You just don't want to line things up so that it kind of looks all in a row. You want some variation in that. So just bringing it up. And this is where you can carve in to your shapes, making the legs a little bit smaller, and you can make your hemline more interesting as well at this point. Just mixing up some more skin tone color here. And I'm using the pink that I had, adding a little bit of yellow to it. Just going to go back in over the faces. The arm is a little bit more opaque now. It's not really an accurate skin tone, but I just like to have something that looks like it works with the painting, and normally what I'm using is my primary colors on my palette to mix that, but in this case you saw what I had, just that little bit of craft paint in the pink, some yellow, and my titanium white. So I'm just going back in, putting a little bit of highlight, a little bit of a shadow side. Again, these are just sketchbook sketches. I'm not wanting to spend tons of time on them, just really trying to develop a wider repertoire by practicing. Practicing is so important, and just to try and change up things. We can get in a rut when we just keep doing the same thing all the time, and it's important to look for other ideas and try out things. So here I'm just coming back into the background and doing a little bit of refining there on the arm. I'm going to come in on the inside of it as well and just make it a little thinner looking. So what we're really doing when we're working in our sketchbook and practicing is just making decisions, really looking at things maybe with a more objective eye and trying things out in a safe place without the fear of wrecking the canvas or wasting a lot of art supplies. And it's really important to have this freedom so that you don't end up feeling stifled or having to stay safe with what you're doing all the time. The sketchbook allows you to get out of your comfort zone and experiment and explore, and nobody has to see it if you don't want them to. This is for you and your eyes. So just go ahead. And the other thing about it is you don't need a lot of space. So if you have a barrier about getting into your studio, or you don't even have a actual set up studio space, this is so doable. You can have a little corner in your bedroom or in your family room, your kitchen, and set up a little area with your sketchbook and a mixing palette. You just don't need much room. Have it out where you can see it so you're constantly reminded that you want to get at it. And take a few minutes. It doesn't have to be long. So I'm coming back in here with some pink. It's not exactly the same pink as I used in the painting, but it's close enough for my sketchbook. And I'm just going around her head here to make it look a little bit more like she has a hooded dress or coat on, rather than put hair on her, so that I have some differences between my two figures and they don't look similar, even though I did use the same reference and just reversed flipped it around so I have the image in the mirror image. So I'm going to come back in and work on her form a little bit. She's a little bit straight and rigid. So let's come in here with some reductive painting and give her a little bit of shape. So this is where you can have fun and get funky about it. So you can make it any shape you want. So when you think of figures as shapes, it becomes so much easier, because really they're not that intimidating when you just see them as shapes. And we've all spent a lot of time in our life looking at the human form, whether you're sitting on a park bench or you're at the airport waiting for a flight. There's just so many times in our life where we've spent it people watching and really studying the human form. So it's something that we know quite well, and don't allow yourself to be intimidated by it. I'm coming in with a Woody Stabilo here in a green color. So Woody Stabilo is like a wax crayon, and it is water soluble, but I'm fine with this in my sketchbook. This is the last thing I'm going to do. So I'm just coming in and refining some of my shapes, and I just want to do a little bit of mark making, emphasis around some of the figure and give it a different quality. I do this quite a bit. In my work, I like to sketch around things. Often it's nice to do it with a color that's in your painting that is maybe a contrast or a brighter color, something that's going to show up and give the look of looseness and sketching. Now, this may not be your thing, and that's totally fine. If you like to keep it a little cleaner and not add that extra bit of sketchy look. So I have quite a bit of plain background, so I'm coming back in here and I'm using again, this is a water-soluble pen. It's a Sigma Sensei, and I really like it, but it would run if I continue painting. And it appears like the nib isn't working that well on it, or it's running out of ink, one of the two. Let me get another one here and see. I want to do a little bit of scribbling back into the hair, put maybe a little bit of detail in the face. So it's an easy way with the face to just draw a couple of lines with a pen to indicate the eyes or the nose. Not too much definition, but just a little bit. And again, I'm just sketching a little bit with it around the form. Sometimes I just don't know when to quit because I really enjoy this part of the process. So I can overdo it or get pretty scribbly. So again, it can all be changed, and it's just a sketch for some practice, some ideas. Not looking for any kind of perfection here. I don't want to spend a ton of time on these pages. I really would rather move on to a different form and try a different figure and just get some more inspiration and ideas. And then with a sketchbook, when you are doing larger paintings, you can go back and get inspiration and ideas from your sketchbook, and it's a great way to get unstuck or to find ideas to get started. So I encourage you to give it a try and see what you come up with. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please leave a comment, leave a question if you have one. I'd be happy to help. And also a reminder about my Buy Me a Coffee, that I would be really grateful if you could make a small donation to help me support this channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye for now.